The Sahara had never been kind to strangers, and yet Amina kept walking, her feet sinking into the scorching sand with every step. She had been traveling for days, guided only by a fading instinct to survive. Her scarf was torn, her lips cracked, her thoughts slowing under the weight of the sun. Behind her lay a life she refused to return to, a forced marriage, a destiny that did not belong to her. Ahead of her lay nothing but dunes, silence, and prayer. By late afternoon, the world began to blur into a haze of gold. The wind rose and sculpted columns of sand around her, as if the desert itself tried to erase her presence. Amina pressed on, until her legs finally failed and she collapsed to her knees. She was certain she would die here, nameless and forgotten, swallowed by the wind. Then, an impossible sound. An engine. She lifted her head slowly. At first she thought it was a mirage, a shimmering shadow breaking the horizon. But the form grew larger, a dark, polished 4x4 moving with the quiet authority of someone who belonged here. The vehicle stopped a few meters from her. The door opened and a man emerged, his figure tall and composed, dressed in a flowing white kandura untouched by dust. He stood still for a moment, observing her with eyes as sharp as a falcon's. There was no panic in him, no disbelief, only the calm of a ruler inspecting his territory. "Stand up," he said gently, his voice deep and steady. "The desert does not forgive weakness." Amina tried but collapsed again. The stranger approached, knelt beside her, and offered a flask of water. She hesitated, a reflex born from a lifetime of mistrust, before finally drinking. The water tasted like life itself. "What is your name?" he asked. "Amina," she whispered. "And yours?" "Zaid," he replied simply, though his presence carried something far larger than a name. There was wealth in his posture, power in the way he measured silence, and mystery in the way he avoided her gaze whenever compassion threatened to show. He lifted her effortlessly and guided her into the car. Inside, the air was cool, perfumed with oud and cedar, a fragrance too rare for a wanderer. Amina realized then, this man was not lost. He was hiding. They drove for miles without a word, the sun slowly melting into copper and crimson. When night fell, Zaid stopped near a cluster of palm trees, a hidden pocket of life where a private oasis lay waiting like a secret palace sculpted by the darkness. Amina looked at him, her voice still fragile. "Why did you help me?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at the stars, as if searching for permission before speaking. "Because sometimes," he said at last, "the desert brings the right people together, at the exact moment they are not looking for anyone." She did not yet know who he was, nor why fate had placed him in her path. But as the wind carried their silence across the dunes, Amina felt a truth she could not name. This stranger would change everything. And the desert, harsh, merciless, ancient, had just chosen to be their witness. The oasis revealed itself like a dream carved out of night, a ribbon of emerald palms wrapped around a pool of moonlit water. Amina had never seen anything so quietly magnificent. It was not a camp. It was a refuge built for someone who wished to hide from the rest of the world. Zaid parked the vehicle beneath a canopy of woven cloth and gestured for her to enter one of the tents. Inside, soft carpets covered the ground like velvet dunes. Lanterns glowed with warm amber light, and the air smelled faintly of jasmine and burning oud wood. Nothing about this place spoke of improvisation. It was intentional, discreet, private. "You may rest here," Zaid said as he handed her a clean robe. "Food will be brought to you shortly." "Brought," she echoed. "By who?" He didn't answer. Moments later, a silent servant dressed in dark attire appeared from another pavilion carrying a silver tray, bread still warm, grilled lamb seasoned with saffron, figs, and cool mint water. Amina stared, overwhelmed. This was no wandering traveler. This was a man who carried luxury into exile. Zaid sat across from her, but not too close, a respectful distance, like a ruler trained in restraint. "You still haven't told me why you were alone," he said. "I was escaping a life that was not mine," Amina replied. People think being born poor means you belong to anyone who claims you. I refused. Zaid observed her carefully, eyes unreadable. Courage is a form of wealth, he said. And loneliness, she asked. He looked away, and that silence answered more than words could. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The night wind whispered through palm leaves, carrying the soft rustling of desert birds settling in their nests. The silence between them was not empty. It was charged, like sand before a storm. Amina was still weak, but no longer afraid. There was something about Zaid. Something controlled yet wounded, like a man who had built walls not to keep others out, but to survive himself. Later, he showed her the natural spring tucked behind a cluster of palm trunks. The water shimmered under the stars, so pure it looked like liquid glass. This oasis, she said softly, it doesn't belong to a simple traveler. Zaid's jaw tightened. Nothing here belongs to me permanently. I am only passing through with servants, guards, and silk carpets. She smiled faintly, testing him. He chuckled, a low, unexpected sound, the first glimpse of the man beneath the armor. You are observant, he admitted. And you are hiding, she replied. He didn't deny it. Instead, he looked at her, not as a stranger, but as someone who saw what others could not. For a split second, something honest flickered in his eyes. Exhaustion and solitude. That night, Amina slept in the luxury of silence, wrapped in soft linen sheets while the stars burned fiercely above the palms. But Zaid did not sleep. He stood outside beneath the sky, watching the dunes, listening to the wind, as if expecting ghosts to follow him. Amina did not yet know it, but she had stepped into the heart of a secret empire, and the man who saved her was not merely generous. He was exiled from his own throne. Morning in the oasis came softly, carried by wind and sunlight filtering through the palms. Amina awoke to the sound of distant prayer, low, solemn, echoing through the desert like memory. When she stepped outside, she found Zaid already awake, seated near the water with a cup of Arabic coffee in his hand. His posture was regal even in silence. You rise early, she said. In the desert, he replied. The sunrise is a conversation you should never miss. There was warmth in his voice now, controlled but warmer than the night before. He motioned for her to sit. A tray was already waiting beside her, fresh dates and honey laid out as though she had always belonged here. But serenity could not mask curiosity. Yesterday, she said slowly, you told me you were only passing through. Passing through what, Zaid? A hiding place? A punishment? Or a life you didn't choose? His hand stilled around the cup. He had expected the question, but not so soon. He took a breath, gaze drifting to the horizon. I was not meant to disappear, he began. But I chose to. I left behind a world where every step is watched, every word measured, and every mistake costs blood. Amina frowned gently. Are you running from enemies? No, he said. From family. The confession fell like a stone into still water. He rose and walked toward the spring, the wind stirring the edges of his robe like wings. She followed quietly, sensing that the desert itself had waited for this story to surface. My name is not just Zaid, he said at last. It is Zaid Al-Mansour ibn Rashid. My family controls one of the largest private holdings in the Gulf. Oil, aviation, shipping, land. A fortune older than some nations. Amina's breath caught. A billionaire, not by rumor, not by accident, by birthright. But wealth without freedom is a prison, he continued. My life was written before I was born. The marriage, the alliances, the crown. All chosen for me. I was to wed a princess for the sake of politics, a union without love, built on obligation. And you refused, Amina whispered. I disappeared, he corrected. The night before the wedding. For a moment she did not speak. The revelation felt too large, too heavy to be absorbed at once. She had run from chains made of tradition. He had run from chains made of gold. Two fugitives, one from poverty, one from power, standing on the same sand. So this oasis, she said softly. A sanctuary, he finished. One of several hidden across the desert. No journalists, no diplomats, no royal guards. And no truth, she added. He turned to her then, really turned. His eyes no longer guarded but vulnerable. I have told you more than anyone has heard since I left my kingdom, he said. I should fear you, and yet I do not. Because I have nothing to gain by betraying you, she replied. No, he said quietly. Because I think you understand me, more than anyone ever has. The moment hung between them, suspended like breath before thunder. Zayd had not just revealed his identity. He had cracked open his solitude. And for the first time since he vanished from his world, he was no longer hiding alone. Night returned to the oasis cloaked in silver moonlight, and for the first time since her arrival, Amina felt calm instead of fear. The desert, once an enemy, had become witness to a strange connection she could neither explain nor resist. Zayd invited her to walk beyond the palm grove, where the dunes stretched like waves of frozen gold. The wind was warm, carrying the scent of earth and night-blooming flowers. Above them, thousands of stars glowed like scattered jewels across the sky. In the desert, he said softly, you learn that silence speaks before the tongue does. Amina looked at him, studying the man behind the title. Without guards, without palaces, without a crown. He was strangely human, fragile even. A shadow of a prince who had never been allowed to choose himself. Show me the stars, she said gently. He pointed upward, drawing constellations with his voice. Orion, the archer, the traveler. But when he showed her the North Star, his tone changed. My father once told me, he said, a man who forgets where his heart points is already lost, no matter how much land he owns. And are you lost? She asked. His gaze lingered on her longer than any answer. Until you arrived, he said quietly. Yes. Amina's breath trembled. She had not expected closeness to bloom in a place built for exile. She had been a burden rescued by chance, yet now she was becoming something more. The one who saw him, not his power. They sat on the sand, watching the sky turn darker, deeper, a velvet roof stitched with eternity. For a moment, the world shrank to the space between them. You have everything men desire, she whispered. Why does it all feel like nothing? Because wealth fills palaces, Zayd replied. Not hearts. Silence again, but not emptiness. It was gravity. He reached out, slowly, respectfully, as if waiting for permission even though she had given none aloud. Their hands met, lightly at first, then fully, fingers threading like two destinies learning each other's shape. Amina felt warmth surge through her. Something frightening because it was unfamiliar. She had never been chosen, never been seen. And yet here, in a place stripped of all illusion, she was not an escapee. She was a beginning. A single shooting star crossed the sky as if sealing the moment. But far beyond the horizon, wheels were already turning. Zayd's disappearance had not gone unnoticed. His name was whispered in royal halls and boardrooms alike. A ghost heir gone rogue. And like all missing crowns, he was not meant to stay hidden forever. The desert could hide a heart, but it could not hide a throne. That same night, unseen drones swept across remote sectors of the dunes, searching for abnormal heat signatures. One of them flickered briefly above the oasis before vanishing into the dark. Zayd did not see it. Amina did not hear it. But destiny did. As they sat together under the sky, two souls finally breathing, the storm that would test their fragile love had already begun its march toward them. The following morning, the peace of the oasis shattered. Zayd was standing near the water when two of his guards arrived on horseback, men he had dismissed months earlier when he chose to disappear. Their faces were tense, their silence heavy. "My lord," one of them said, "they have located you. Your family's envoys are crossing the dunes. They will be here before nightfall." For the first time since she met him, Amina saw a shadow of fear in Zaid's eyes, not for himself but for her. "They must not see her," he said sharply. "You cannot hide her," the guard replied. "This is no longer a retreat. It is a battlefield of reputation." Amina overheard from the entrance of the tent. She stepped forward slowly. "They're coming because of me. They're coming because of what you represent," Zaid answered. "A choice that does not belong to them." He led her away from the guards, toward the edge of the dunes, where wind carried the first tremors of approaching men. His expression was no longer just noble. It was protective. "If they find you here," he said, "they will label you unworthy. They will not see the woman you are, only the barrier you represent to their power." "And what will you do?" Amina asked. For a moment, the world narrowed to his breath and hers. "I will choose," he said. "Not the crown. Not the empire. Not the name they chained to me before I could speak. I will choose the life I want, and the woman I want beside me." She looked at him, stunned. "You would give up everything." "I am not giving up anything," he replied softly. "I am reclaiming myself." By noon, a convoy of black vehicles appeared on the horizon, sleek shadows slicing across the desert. Royal envoys, legal advisors, silent command. They expected a prince kneeling back to duty. They found a man already standing. Zaid stepped forward before they could speak. "I will not return," he said. "My birth is not my sentence. I refuse the marriage, the throne, the obligations written in my name. I walk away." "You abandon an empire," the lead advisor said coldly. "No," Zaid answered. "I liberate myself from it." Shock rippled through the delegation, but the words had already been spoken aloud, and destiny, once declared, cannot be undone. They departed, not in triumph, but in disbelief, leaving the oasis in stunned silence behind them. That evening, when the sun bled into gold and scarlet across the dunes, Amina stood beside Zaid once more. No title, no chains, no throne. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," he said, taking her hand. "We build a life, not a legacy." She looked at the horizon, the very line where she once expected to die, now reborn as the beginning of a new chapter. The desert that had buried her fear had also unearthed something greater. Worth. Not wealth. Not royalty. Worth born from being chosen, not owned. Together they walked toward the spring, the wind swirling gently around them like a quiet blessing. In the place where she had nearly lost her life, he found love. And in the place where he had buried his identity, he found freedom. The desert had not been their end. It had been their beginning. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comments which country you're watching from.